Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Leadership Void podcast. I'm Enrique with my co host Vince to bring you the best in our veteran military spouse and first responder community. And Vince will introduce today's guest.
Good morning, everyone. We are so excited today to have Chris Tighe with us. He's the owner and CEO of Elevation Construction. It's in Cypress, Texas. Chris, welcome to the show. Kick us
Thanks.
off and tell us a little bit about you. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I'm married. My wife and I have been married for over 19 years now. We've got two boys. My oldest son is in high school, and we're out late at a track meet last night watching him race. So that was kind of fun. And my youngest just turned 10. So we live out in Cypress, Texas. My wife and I are both retired military, both did 23 years. Um, and part of that was in the reserves. And while I was a reservist, I was a San Diego police officer for 10 years. And we went through a lot of like transitioning after all that, trying to figure out what we're going to do with our lives, and ended up on the path we're on now with the entrepreneurship. And currently we live in Cypress, Texas.
Outstanding. And talking about a transition
Mhm.
and going in from military to now what you're doing, entrepreneurship, tell us a little bit about Elevation Construction.
So the transition piece, it's weird. My background in the Navy, I was nothing construction. I was, in the signals intelligence world. Law enforcement has nothing to do with construction. So people are like, well, how did you get into construction? Well, it all started when I was in Afghanistan. I was sent out there to fly UAVs, drones for the special forces. I was the first one there. And they said, hey, Chris, you have to build your site. And they weren't going to send me home because I didn't know anything about construction, so I had nothing but to learn. So I learned about the difference between a 110 and 220 on electrical. I learned what septic meant. I learned that when you flush the toilet, it's got to go somewhere, and I have to figure that piece out. So I took a dirt field and turned it into an operations center where we had everything that we needed to operate: information technology, places to hang out and chill out, places to work out, whatever it might be, a place where you can live. And when I left, I'm like, gosh, that was kind of fun. I enjoyed that. That was completely out of my community, out of what I do on the normal day to day. And as fast forward, when my wife and I were just kind of bouncing around trying to figure out what we're going to do with our lives, we ended up in Washington State, outside of Tacoma. We own a property management company, and our clients asked us who can oversee construction they want to do, because they wanted to renovate apartment complexes. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. So that's when Elevation started conducting business. We started off in Washington State back in 2019, so not too long ago. And as time went on, we decided we wanted to move the family to Texas, and we opened up shop down here.
Oh, from a dirt field to an operations center, my man. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Love to hear it. Congrats
yeah.
on everything you're doing. Hitting that threshold of 5 years of entrepreneurship and over exceeding that. So, what great lessons you love to share or challenges of entrepreneurship with our audience today, or how do you give back to the community?
The community one's a little bit easier to answer. So what we do is, one thing that I learned, I got my master's in business leadership at University of San Diego. One of the things that they were really big on teaching us is corporate social responsibility, on tying your company to some kind of charity, nonprofit, whatever it might be. I've got a close friend of mine who created a orphanage in the Dominican Republic. And so orphanages down there, primarily, when I went down there, primarily they're just a bunch of boys. And so there was really no resources for the girls, the little girls. So they created an orphanage for the little girls. And so we support them on a monthly basis. My goal is to be able to support them where our contribution covers their operational expenses, and they don't have to worry about anything but to care for the girls. And then locally, what I'm trying to do is get some strategic partnerships with some local veteran communities where we can help out with some of the disabled veterans who need modifications to their homes, so that it'll accommodate their disabilities. So that one was a little bit easier to answer. The other part is, as far as like challenges with entrepreneurship, is it's never easy. It's hard. This is the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's also, I wouldn't want to do anything else right now. I know this is my purpose, this is my journey, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And what I've learned is the challenges as you grow, the challenges get harder and harder and harder. The only difference is you get better and better at handling those challenges. It depends, it's your choice on how you want to handle it. So that's kind of like the biggest thing I tell people when they want to get into entrepreneurship. And before all of that, it's, making that decision to actually jump and start your company, start your business. Don't be afraid. I mean, there's always going to be a fear factor, right? And there's always a reason not to do it. So, and you're not going to know every single detail. You got to jump into this with both feet. If you have a true desire and true passion, you need to jump in and do it, because I believe that we all have desires for a reason, and God put it in us, not to frustrate us, but to direct us in the lives that we're supposed to be living, right? And those desires will change throughout life. Like when I was 18 years old, my desire was to serve in the military. That's what I did. When I got out of the military, I wanted to serve in the police department. That's what I did. Now it's different, right? Now my priorities are to create jobs and opportunity and create a life for my family. So anyway, I know that's kind of long-winded, but if you have that desire to actually do something different, ignore the fear, because your future's on the other side of that fear. You need to jump and get it done.
Absolutely great advice there for entrepreneurs. And your initial comment that corporate responsibility to community is so important, because indeed it is the community that ends up supporting your entrepreneur
Yeah.
endeavors, right? So it's a
Yep.
feed type of relationship. And I'm glad that you've chosen to invest in those that don't have.
Right.
And it's so applaudable that you're doing that. So now you have your community relation, you have your company going. So what's on the horizon for Elevation Construction?
Deep inside, I've got a desire to have a big company. And there's an internal battle of like, is that my ego or is that my vision, right? But I've come to realize that it's not my ego, because my vision is to create more jobs and opportunity for people. And in the construction industry, there's a lot of, I don't say a lot of bad apples, but there's enough bad apples to create a bad name. My desire is to create a good name with Elevation, and to create that trust with people and that's what our brand will be. And I don't want to just be here in Houston. We still do operations up in Washington. We do a lot more here in Houston. I like to expand further. I like to expand into Dallas and the different major cities here in Houston. I also have my eye on Florida. I've got memories, and I've got some ties out in Pensacola. So, Naval Air Station Pensacola out there. Done a lot of training over there, and I love that area. So, who knows? Maybe we'll move on to Florida for our next stop.
You will move on, my man, Chris. We're gonna put it out there first, right here in the universe.
There you
Forget the
go.
fear. Let's go for it, right? You got the
Exactly,
desire and
right?
the passion.
Exactly.
Congratulations on that. I'll say it ahead of time to you and your future endeavors. Let's switch gears a little bit, Chris. And I know
Yeah.
we know you said you have your master's, but what do you continuously do to sharpen your saw to aids and help you thrive in your professional life?
Yeah, I'm really big in coaching. So I do have a business coach. I do have several mentors. I go on a walk with my buddy Pete we try to do it every Sunday. Lately, because of the Super Bowl and his traveling, we haven't been meeting for a couple of weeks, but we'll go for a 2-hour walk on Sunday mornings, and it's just nothing but business. And he's ahead of the journey by a decade with me, or from me. So he's been in my shoes. So I will just like, hey, this is what's going on, and then we'll just bounce ideas back and forth, and that's extremely helpful for me. My business coach, Steve Rosenberg, lives here in Houston. He's a huge influence in our lives, because he's kind of the reason why we moved down here. So I reach out to him quite often. So that I've got the people in place. I surround myself by good people. I go to a BNI locally, and there's some great business people in that chapter where we get together, we talk business and marketing and all that stuff. And then personally, I've got a pretty strict morning routine where I get up on school days. I'll wake up at 4:45. I'll do my personal hygiene, get coffee, and I'll read. And I'll read a business book. If I feel like I'm in a bit of a funk, I'll read something that's more inspirational. I'll read at least a chapter or more of the Bible, and then I do my journaling. And so I've been doing that for about 5 years now, and I'll read about 25 to 30 books a year. And a third of those are repeat reads because I remember how they made me feel, or, hey, it's been a while and I need to remember the stuff that I learned in this book. So continuous learning is a big thing for me. That's one of our core values with Elevation Construction. And we're all always talking about, hey, how can we get better? How can we get better? And that's the only way you can grow.
That's a great strategy, and surrounding yourself with people that will sharpen you ahead, sharpen and allow you to sharpen them, right? So
Right,
I've
exactly.
always been a proponent for mentors on both sides so that
Exactly.
both blades are cutting sharp. But
Yeah,
it's great to hear that you have that for yourself and are taking advantage of that. Talking about having that for yourself and giving back, what
right.
advice did you receive that you would like to pass on to an emerging leader today?
There's one story. This was back in, must have been 1996, 1997. I was a young E4, just got out of my initial training. I did training for a couple of years and then I went for my first duty station. And so my job, because I was the junior guy, my job was to make sure we had snacks in the office, right? So that was a big responsibility. Hey, you're the geek dunk petty officer. Wow, that's great. So um, so I got the snacks, and then back then you can't do it now. Back then you had to pay for the snacks, and then you use that money to do like your department picnic or whatever it was, right? So my job was to get the snacks, collect the money. So I did that. And every day at the end of the day, I had to bring the money over to the senior chief and say, hey, senior chief, here's what was collected today. And he would secure it somewhere. And so I did it early one day. Um, Quitting time was 4 o'clock. I did about maybe 3:15. I was turning in the stuff, and he goes, "What? How come you're leaving?" I said, "Well, we have a softball game at 4:30. We're playing you guys." I was playing his team. I said, "And we wanted to get some practice in before the game." He goes, "Not on my time. You're not practicing." I said, "Oh, okay, senior chief." And he goes, "And what are you doing anyway?" I said, "Well, mistake, but I'm glad I said this because I learned a lesson." I said, "Well, senior chief, there really isn't that much to do." And he said, "You don't have much to do because you're not out there finding something to do. Now go out and find something to do." And I go, "Okay, since you've got it." So I didn't do that again. But I tell that story to people, especially like when I depart from command or whatever, and there's a bunch of junior sailors there. I share that story because, like, hey, there's always something to do. And I find myself today, like, oh, I got 5 minutes before the podcast. What can I do that can take me 2 minutes? I'll knock it out real quick, right? There's always something you can be doing to move the ball forward, not just for yourself, but for your company, for whatever it is, for your spouse, for your family, right? There's always something to do. So if you find yourself kind of sitting there with like, oh, what do I do? There's always something to do, always something to do. It's really, if you find yourself sitting there wondering, it's because you don't feel like doing anything or being a bit lazy.
Man, you hit us with a great leadership moment too, as well as advice there, Chris. Thank you for sharing that. Plus, you brought us back at the E4 days in '96, and so it was
Yeah.
wonderful to hear. Yeah, Vegas chopping it up there. So,
Yeah.
talk about leadership, memorable leadership aha moments you've had either through the military or through your police force or in your journey. Share an aha moment with us today.
I was reflecting on that this morning. I wish I was the leader today. And I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but the leader I am today, I wish I was back when I was on active duty because I would have been better for my people. But I think anyone can say that, right? Because you're continually growing. My aha was really when I'm hiring people, I need to hire people who are actually better than I am and ignore the ego. Because the only way, if I'm not hiring people better than me, then the company is going to go as high as my capacity, right? I'm not good with the financials. I know how to read them. I just don't know how. And I get frustrated when I have to deal with the spreadsheets and the numbers. The details for operations, I can manage, but I'm not the best at it. So what are my strengths? My strengths is gathering a team and making everyone enjoy coming to work and creating SOPs and creating structure and meetings and things. That's my skill. That's my superpower really is to create those systems involved. So what I did was like, hey, I've got team members who have been like Liz on my team. She's a financial whiz. She's my finance manager. And I just like delegate kind of some authority to her. I have to ask her if I could spend money. I asked like, hey, Liz, are we okay? Can I do this? And if she tells me no, I'm like, okay, you're the boss. I'm not going to do it. You know what's best for the company. And Alma in operations, she's, running the show. So I'm like, hey, she'll come to me with a situation. I'm like, hey, well, what do you think? Because you're in this every day. She goes, I think we should do this, this, and this. Hey, that's cool. You know it better than I do. Let's go that route. And then my assistant Isamar, she's kind of like my mom. She keeps me out of trouble. And she's always keeping me on task. She's, hey, what are you doing right now? I don't know. I got 30 minutes. So I said, okay, you got some tasks you need to do. You need to do this, 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 and this. Let me know when it's done. So getting those people in your life who are better than you are, and working for you, and not allowing the fact that they're better than you affect your ego is a big deal, right? So if I look at the big picture, if I look at Liz, right, and Alma, and their skills, sometimes I get a little intimidated. I'm like, they're better than I am. I probably should be working for them, right? But we all have our roles, right? And then and that kind of leads to like the servant leadership. Is I really feel that servant leadership is the way to go. And my job as the leader, the CEO, my job is to give them the resources so that they can do their job better and to stay out of their way. Because if I hired correctly, they're going to do a great job.
And you bring a great point up. As a CEO, you do work for them.
Yeah,
You work for
exactly.
everybody
Yeah,
that hired you, right? So
right.
it's a great approach to already be in it,
Mhm.
and not allow that to actually come and get you. But
Yeah,
you mentioned something that I love, and as leaders, we cannot be the ceiling. Uh,
right.
in our companies, we can't be the ceiling, right?
Mhm.
And so you have to really, really look out for that. As you was talking and talking about the Gidon petty officer, I was a Gidon petty officer one time, and
Yeah.
so I remember that well. So as we talk about challenges, things that come up in entrepreneurship, in company structure, what are certain strategies you use with your team or with yourself when change and challenge come?
I think maybe I'm a little different in that I do like change. If when things are the same, I just get a bit bored, and maybe I try to change things just to make it a little exciting. And that's not a good thing, but I do like changes because the way I feel, and I haven't always felt this way, but as time has gone and I've matured and gotten older, is when things change or if there's a challenge, it's because there's another opportunity is going to present itself, right? I can't remember who said it, but there's a quote that's something like challenges are just opportunities dressed in work clothes. So whenever I get a challenge, and I was telling my buddy Pete this the other day, you know, I just got a huge challenge a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, okay, before I'd be stressing out about it and losing sleep. Now it's like, wow, that's a big challenge. There's going to be something great on the other end of this one because then this is going to kick my butt. You know what I mean? So just viewing those challenges in a different light, and then for changes and stuff like, for example, when the economy shifted 18 months ago, our bread and butter was renovating apartment complexes. But when the economy changed, those investors stopped spending money. So what am I going to do? Am I just going to like go out of business, or am I going to pivot? Because we're construction, we don't necessarily have to stick to apartment complexes. So that's when we moved over into kitchen, bathroom models, new additions, and homes. And that change really grew our capacity, because now we're building houses. Going from just renovating some old apartment complexes, which is easy. It's just copy and paste, copy and paste. Now we're doing custom homes. So if that change didn't happen, we wouldn't have grown as a company, wouldn't have grown our skill set. So because I've experienced those things over and over again, I can look back and say, okay, there's a change coming and things are going to be great on the other side. We just got to look at it in different view.
Oh, absolutely. Challenges are dressed in those those work clothes for as opportunities. I love that statement there, Chris, and love everything you said and everything Elevation Construction is doing. So, how do people get a hold of you, Chris, or Elevation Construction?
They can go to our website, elevationconstructionteam.com. We have just about everything there. We're really big on social media. So Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. So you can look at all three of those mediums. But social media, the website, you can email me to Christopher@elevationconstructionteam.com. Yeah, so those are the different ways you can get in touch with me.
Outstanding. And we'll have that as part of the show notes and video so you could get a hold of Chris and his team and company. And if you want to get a hold of us at the Leadership Void Podcast, the Leadership Void at gmail.com is where you'll send that correspondence. If you'd like to have us speak about some leadership topic or have a guest on the show, you'll do it by those means.
Yeah, especially a person like Chris, let us know if you have those wonderful guests out there. Talk about wonderful. Thanks for our sponsors, Triple Nickel, FAVOB, and A Hero for Kids sponsoring our show. Today is all about Chris and Elevation Construction. Chris, thank you for being on the show and much success in your future.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for what you guys do, and thank you for the opportunity.